What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Avarice podcast. Today we're going to watch Friday the 13th, part 6. So I'm going to begin my regular routine of making myself a cup of coffee. Then I'll sit down at the couch and load a bowl. I will take a couple hits off of it, and then I will give you a countdown to let you know that I am starting the show if you are going to watch the movie along with me. It's not a necessity. You can do it. I'll be honest, I listened to some other people's commentary tracks. I've never once attempted to watch the movie while I was listening to it. It's just not my thing. For the most part, I can figure out what's going on in these movies just by listening. If you're this deep into the Friday the 13th franchise, you probably have the same thing going on. You're probably familiar enough with these to not need to watch it, and you'll still know what I'm referring to. And I also try to keep my comments, for the most part, autonomous of the visual of the movie. So I'll comment on it, but I try to set the scene and describe what I'm talking about enough to where it's enjoyable as a standalone audio product. That was pretty long-winded. So yeah, we are on the heels of Friday the 13th Part 5, which was critically and box office-wise a disaster, I think. No, actually, I think it did well in the box office. I take that back. Because a lot of what tends to happen with these movies, when you have long franchises, etc., is if the last one was good, then this one's probably going to do all right. But if this one's bad, the next one's probably not. A lot of the success in franchises is based off the previous movie. So you take a movie like Friday the 13th Part 4 that was fucking awesome, and then you come out with Part 5, people are going to go see it. But they left Part 5 with a bad taste in their mouth. So when you come out with Part 6, even though it's a better movie, they're not really willing to give you a chance. They feel burned already. And it's hard to, from the fans' perspective, it's hard to believe that you're going to come up with a superior product that deep into the run. They did this weird thing with Friday the 13th where they wanted to kill Jason off, but they never committed to it. It was like a really half-assed, phone-it-in college try at closing the franchise. I mean, not from the perspective of the products they produced, the movies that were made in that effort, in those attempts. Friday the 13th Part 3, at the time it was made, was intended to be the close of the franchise, as well as Part 4. So if you look at those movies and watch them as if they're going to be the end, they play out pretty well, 4 especially. I don't think that they could have ended the franchise on a higher note than Friday the 13th Part 4. It might have been one of the best endings to a franchise ever. But it's hard to turn away those dollars. They can rake in the dough with these. They make them cheap, every single one of them, and they all make millions of dollars at the box office, and rinse and repeat. So with Part 5, they had told the audience that there was no more Jason, and they felt obligated to stay true to that. But then they just gave you a copycat Jason movie. And other than the ending where it's revealed that it's not Jason, it plays out just like a Jason movie. It is a Jason movie, except for the fact that at the end you find out it wasn't really Jason. So effectively, it's just another Jason. Like, I don't really understand their logic in promising to kill off the franchise so many times, but then continuing to make movies. And with Part 5, I don't know how they thought that was really a different product in any way, except for the end where you find out it's a copycat killer. The presentation, all that is the same. It's even maybe a little sleazier than it actually definitely is sleazier than the previous ones. It's raunchier. It's got that porn feel because Danny Steinman came from porn. They hired a porn director, and so they got what they got. So anyway, they make the copycat movie, and people are up in arms. So the word comes from the top down of this Paramount Studios to Frank Mancuso Jr., get Friday the 13th back on track, which is interesting because they've been telling us the entire time there is no more track. They were saying continuously, this is going to be the end, this is going to be the end, this is going to be the end. So when word comes from the top down to get it back on track, that implies that the people really pulling the strings probably are never planning on ending this unless they have to. In their mind, there is a track. This is going to continue to go down the track, and it has gotten off the track, and we need to correct course before it's permanent. When you have a big, I heard Hulk Hogan say this once when he was talking about WCW, when you have a big plane, imagine that your corporation, your company, your project, your franchise is a plane, big plane. You can make a lot of little tiny mistakes, and they're easy to adjust to. But you can make very few big mistakes, or the nose of that plane starts to go down. And once the nose of that plane starts to go down, it's an emergency, and it's very hard to correct again. So with the copycat movie, they kind of made a major mistake, and they really had to try to reel it back in. And they did produce a better movie here. But people, like I said before, people were already jaded. People were soured on it. So whereas number 5 did pretty well in the box office and this one didn't, they have the opposite trajectories when it comes to time. Number 5, basically immediately after it was released, was looked upon as bad. So it has not aged well. People continue to bitch about it to this day. It's I imagine there's people that won't even watch it. They consider it not part of the franchise, which I can kind of understand. I feel that way about Halloween 3. I've never even watched Halloween 3, not at one time. I don't really have any interest in it at all. But Halloween 3 isn't a copycat Michael Myers movie. It's no Michael Myers at all, which I could go two ways about. I would never be happy if there was a copycat Michael Myers, I don't think, because I've said in many of my podcasts and videos before, I think that part of what makes Michael is that he's singular. He can't be controlled, the power can't be shared, he can't be stopped. There's no team, there's no passing of the evil. It's just him. He is the motherfucker. So having a movie play out where it looks like it's Michael and it ends up being just a regular person, you would have to film it and you would have to make them not act out a lot of the things that Michael actually does in the movies, or it wouldn't play right. And I guess that's kind of what the mistakes they made in number 5. Tom Morga, who played Jason in number 5, was instructed to play it straight like Jason Voorhees, and the production team told him they would figure it out at the end. They'd sort it out in the wash. But for purposes of going forward, when he was in the scenes wearing the mask, he was supposed to portray it as if he was the real Jason 100% of the time. Whether he was wearing the blue mask and he was the imposter Jason, or if he was wearing the red mask and he was the apparition or the hallucination of the real Jason. He played it the same way. So it really is, except for the end where it shows the dude's face, it is a Friday the 13th movie. It is a Jason movie, basically. I guess I'm just not as attached to the lore in Friday the 13th. So it doesn't really, I don't get in my feelings about the fact that it's not Jason. I'm not that attached to Jason as a being. It's cool to see him fuck shit up. He's a berserker. It's whatever. But I don't get offended or my feelings hurt by the concept of a fake Jason. It doesn't, and at that point in time, Jason is still pretty human himself. He loses a lot of those qualities as he go along in the franchise, but they never really explain. That's the part of the problem too. We never really know if he drowned and came back from the dead, if he never drowned to begin with and then was just living feral in the woods without the knowledge of his mother. Like, they never really address any of that, and that's pretty muddled and confusing when you try to sort through it, and there's no clear answer. So my impression, basically the entire time that I've known about these movies, was that he was always kind of back from the dead, supernatural, like the drowning story, and then all of a sudden he's in like it. The way that my brain hashed that out was that he was some kind of supernatural being. It wasn't that he swam to shore and then just survived eating dogs and squirrels in the woods and taking hurricane debris and building a makeshift shack. But that may be what they never address it, so it's left open, so I kind of go with what I go with. Anyway, this has turned into the longest intro to a movie before I start ever. At least the longest one where I actually talk about the movie. So basically, my point is, I think that number 5 was misunderstood, but nonetheless, it pissed people off, and they tried to come back and correct course with this. They put it right in the title, Jason Lives, trying to inform the audience that this is going to be the real Jason. We're going back to basics and giving you what you want. The problem, I guess, with number 5 is that you can't have a slogan like that as effectively communicates what's going on in the movie like Jason Lives. Because of the blunder of the last one, you put Jason Lives on here and people are going to know, okay, this is when Jason comes back. The last one was called A New Beginning. They kind of tried to let you know that they were going a different direction. They changed the masks. The imposter didn't have the axe wound in his head. There were little tiny... The paramedic, when he sees the dead body, look at the reaction on his face. He really sells it. There are little tiny clues along the way that are supposed to inform you that it's not the real Jason, and the movie is supposed to be a whodunit. But the execution and the communication with the audience preceding that is where they went awry. Very similar to Halloween 3. A lot of people were pissed off because they went to Halloween 3 expecting a Michael Myers movie and they didn't get it. They got no Michael Myers. I can't even fucking imagine if I had gone to the theater to see Halloween 3 and there was no Michael Myers. I might have thrown a beer bottle at the fucking screen. I mean, that would have been such visceral outrage. I mean, I think quality control has come a long way since then in that regard, where I think that studios, etc., just wouldn't let that happen. I could be wrong. So they get a new guy to play Jason in this. They get a new director. They keep some of the same production staff, but they definitely didn't like the sleazy, raunchy feel they got from Danny. So they hired Tom McLaughlin. And I guess one thing you have to give them credit for, but also kind of fucked them, is that they wanted to stick with this idea that the audience thinks Jason is dead. We told the audience Jason is dead. We're going to go with Jason being dead. So they needed to resurrect him now, and now he becomes a legit, full-on zombie, and that's where I kind of get lost. I can still watch it and appreciate the berserker mentality that he has, and the brute force, and the kills, and all that. But I'm not as attached to the lore and the story anymore because I don't believe in that kind of shit in real life. I don't believe in seances. I don't believe in Ouija boards. I don't believe in fucking ghost shows. So, zombie shit like this doesn't really get me. I should add a caveat to that, though. The beginning seasons of The Walking Dead got me. But they lost me too, because it just became torture porn and a soap opera between the people. I was more intrigued by the actual legitimate threat of the zombies, the infection, that whatever it was caused. But they did such a good job in the beginning of that show of expressing what a dire situation true survival is. When all the infrastructure and safety of society that we become accustomed to and take for granted goes away, how vulnerable we really are, especially if there's some kind of a threat. Like, I know there's zombies, there's never been zombies, it's kind of unrealistic, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that some kind of an infection or something could go around like that. And now you have people against kind of altered people. I don't know. I just, the not being able to trust anybody because there's a lack of resources and supply. So anybody you come across might be trying to take what's yours, and they're worried that you might be trying to take what's theirs. So there's this real odd kind of awkward touch and go process of gaining trust and rapport and working together as a community because you're afraid that everybody's just trying to steal what's yours and kill you. That's the elements of that show that really I attached myself to and was able to why I liked it for the first few seasons. I don't even watch it anymore. But those are different elements of a zombie movie than what you have with Jason. I got way sidetracked there. I'm going to take one more hit and then we'll start the movie. I'm fucking my recording schedule all up by spending so much time talking before I actually start the movie. I hope I have shit to talk about once it starts. One thing I should say, I don't know as much about this one as I have some of the previous ones. The deeper we get, the less I'm going to know. I become less interested. Excuse me. And they can get a little goofy. Let's be honest. Like, Jason Takes Manhattan. What the fuck? When you picture in your mind what Jason Takes Manhattan could have been, when you forget about budgets and realism, like, when you just hear Jason and Manhattan and you think, and then you watch what they were able to come up with a low-budget movie, you're like, fucking hey, where's the Manhattan? Alrighty, let's get this bitch underway. Okay, I haven't mentioned yet that I'm streaming this on Amazon Prime, so if you do want to watch along with me, that's where you can find it. Go ahead and pause the podcast now and get your shit set up, because I'm just going to go ahead and play this in 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, it's a fucking advertisement. I'll recalibrate you once we're actually to the beginning of the movie. My dad. Okay, pressing play again in 3, 2, 1, play. I mention it every time. Vintage Paramount Mountain. A Gulf Western company. Bah. So in this movie, they basically are going to ignore Part 5 entirely, which actually works. It would fit into the storyline and the lore just fine to ignore Part 5 because he's a copycat. It doesn't have to be part of the Jason story. That's where copycat movies kind of work, because you can smack them into the middle of a franchise and not affect your canon and your lore at all, because it's just a random offshoot that happens. The bitch of it is that they put the Tommy Jarvis character in Part 5. So now you have continuity issues if this is Tommy Jarvis also, because it's a different actor. He's not quite so deranged. He's got more balls. This is a more realistic adult portrayal of the Corey Feldman kid that we saw, in my opinion. It's more likely that the Corey Feldman Tommy Jarvis grows up to be this guy than grows up to be the guy in the last one. Some people might disagree. And I'm in the camp of people who doesn't really hate Part 5. Like I said before, I'm not attached to it. There's Rorschach from Welcome Back, Kotter. I'm not attached to the lore. Like, sometimes I sit around thinking about Michael Myers and trying to connect dots and shit for no fucking reason. Nobody's gonna pay me if I figure it out. There's not some award. I'm not gonna get a gold star. God's not gonna part the heavens and say, you figured it out, Devin. That is the correct answer. None of that shit is gonna happen. Nobody's gonna put me on their shoulders and parade me around the room. I still spend time thinking about it. I've never once, like, outside the context of watching the movies or preparing for a video or a podcast, I've never tried to spend time connecting the dots with Friday the 13th, because it doesn't seem like it's there to be connected. It may be just as impossible to connect the dots for Halloween and Michael Myers, but they give you enough, but leave enough mysterious to where you feel like there's an answer there, and you're just trying to work the angles until you figure it out. That's what's great about it, and people get to have their arguments, and it lives on in perpetuity. I think that's really what made the Halloween franchise come on kind of stronger later and maintain it longer. Like, as we stand today, the Halloween franchise sits in a much better place than the Friday the 13th franchise. But back then, this was filmed in 86. Back then, Friday the 13th was doing much stronger because they had packed it in with Michael in 81, came out with Halloween 3 that was a complete and utter failure, and then they didn't come out with Halloween 4 and bring Michael back till 89. We're already on Friday the 13th part 6. So Friday the 13th really pumped the well at the jump more than Halloween did. And then they kind of wore out their welcome, and they, like I was talking about, they didn't have the same lore and the same kind of thought-provoking, argument-inspiring plots for fans would kind of sit around and bounce this shit back and forth between each other and try to figure out what happened. So that's something that grows interest, or maintains it over time, at least. When people are trying to talk things out and figure it out, it's fresh in their mind for longer. Fresh for longer, does that make sense? Anyway, you kind of get my point. So then when you start coming out with Halloween 4, 5, 6, H2O, Resurrection, all that shit. Well, fuck, Resurrection's a pile of shit. See, look at this. See, he's going to come back from that. That's where I'm like, oh, all right. I'm not as scared of a thing that comes back from this as I am of a mountain man that kills people. Because I might run into a mountain man that kills people. I'm not going to run into this thing. I'm more afraid of the movie Anaconda than I am of this thing. Maybe I'm narrow-minded, but this scene is also eerily similar to the opening scene from the last movie. That's Tommy's Nightmare, where he watches the dudes dig Jason up. You just need the rain and the little kid sitting over in the trees in a raincoat, and you have the same thing. Same ordeal. They're also a bit tongue-in-cheek here. Tom McLaughlin it's a valid attempt at correcting course and bringing the franchise back on the path it was on previously. But he also is a bit slapsticky and acknowledges the ridiculousness of the horror and slasher genre a few times, as well as having the characters be aware of horror and of Jason in the film. And Kevin Williamson was actually inspired by this movie a lot when coming up with Scream, where they have a lot of references to horror and cinema and film, and they kind of understand the rules. So that was the big resurrection. That's as good an idea as any. If you're a fan of this type of movie, these ghouls and goblins, Frankenstein type shit, it's got to be well done. I mean, I think it's well done. I'm just not the biggest fan of this particular type of movie is all. But having him stab him with the wrought iron fence and the lightning strikes it, and that's how he gets brought back to life. I'm on board with it. It's not my favorite. I'll still give it a chance. It's better than watching Tu Wong Fu. Tu Wong Fu might not be a bad movie, actually. Last time I watched it, I was a kid, and there's probably a lot of jokes and references in it that I didn't fucking get. When I was a kid, if I saw not Kurt Russell, what the fuck is it? Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes were in a movie, I would think for sure there's gonna be some karate going on. Like, I had to be expecting some Roadhouse Passenger 57 shit. So then when it was cross-dressing or drag queens, I don't know what the proper term is, I was like, what? I mean, I was born in 87. I don't know what year that movie came out. I was probably like 7 years old. No more than 9 when I saw it. Just don't have the context to understand. I think this is the only scene in the movie where we see Jason's face. They got one guy that they started with for Jason, and then similar to number 2, he got let go. They wanted a more imposing figure, so they got this big fucking G.I. Joe looking dude to play him. And he's very Terminator robotic-like, but that fits with being a zombie to me. You would expect a zombie to have less cognitive ability than a person. At least that's generally what we get from zombies in classic zombie stories. That's usually what makes them less than human. They usually are stronger than us, but we are, and more vicious than us, but we're smarter than them. If I had to kind of draw a hard line between humans and the 007 intro. I don't mind it, actually. I think you have to change it up, especially we're 6 movies deep. They have to be thinking there's going to be more after this. So you're not only making your standalone project, but you're making something that fits into a series or fits into a franchise. It's a piece of a much bigger thing. So put your little stank on it. Make it yours in certain ways that differentiate it from other ones. That's something that gets discussed about the Halloween movies, the different intros and these ones. How do you like the way this one did the intro? How do you like the way that one did the intro? I like I think it's the very first one, when the Friday the 13th logo comes flying towards you and then the glass breaks Stone Cold Steve Austin style. That's my jam. I like simple and classic. But the 007 one, it's tongue-in-cheek and I don't have a problem with it because we're into zombie shit now. None of this is realistic. And I can really appreciate that. If you're going to make something like this where I don't really believe in zombies or any of that shit anyway, go ahead and acknowledge the fact that you know you're making something ridiculous, because now I'm completely on board with you. I can watch it from the perspective that you know you're making something goofy and we're on the same team. And another continuity issue, they claimed that Jason was cremated in the last movie, the argument in the sheriff's office. Oh, he was going to dig him up to cremate him. Little tweaks. Excuse me. See, that's another thing I didn't need. I guess you're trying to up the ante for the audience and keep them interested. It can't be just always the same. But did Jason need to be even more powerful? It seemed like he was imposing and formidable enough before. So now he's just Super Saiyan and invincible? Because I'm not really on board with that either. That's the other, when you're watching a Halloween movie, half of you is like, why not just square up and try to... I feel like if somebody made an honest effort, how hard could it be to just whoop his ass or get the jump on him, get the better of him, hit him with something, shoot him, slice him up? Like, when you have superhuman Jason, you're like, well, that would be futile. Can't do anything to him. He's just gonna rip your arms off and beat you to death with them. You gonna take that wet denim jacket off? Fucking caveman. Caveman with a denim jacket. What is this weird glare we're getting from the headlights? Ghost! The gal driving is Tom McLaughlin's wife. I can't remember her name. I apologize. Ma'am. Miss. Whatever you prefer to be called. Another Volkswagen Beetle. Fucking A. I need to go through and try to make a tally of all the horror movies that I know of that have Volkswagen Beetles in them. A lot of the Friday the 13th movies. Most of them.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
See, she's gonna acknowledge that the characters are smart enough to have seen scary movies and know that this isn't something that you fucking trifle with. I managed to use trifle in a sentence there, ladies and gentlemen. He used gully in a sentence. I think he won. You're gonna scare him? That's a freaking fact? I don't think there's any nudity in this entire movie. They missed the mark a little bit in that, because I'm not saying that every movie needs to have nudity, or you need to have nudity to make a good movie or a good scary movie. Nothing of that sort. But for sure, if you're trying to do like Jason Lives and revitalize your core audience and get them back invested in the franchise, they are expecting tits and ass in these movies. It's par for the course. It's just part of meeting your quota. It checks one of the boxes. So, it's a major mishap to not have any tits in this. Maybe there's some and I'm forgetting, but I don't think so. Shoot him. What? He's making overt threats. He stabbed through your tire. He broke your thing. He's got a spear in his hand. Shoot. See? Now, by the time you shot, it's too late to find out that a bullet doesn't do anything. She almost got stabbed for real there. Did you see how he was aiming for the driver's side? And when it hit the glass, it took a hard turn and went towards the passenger side. So she was in the passenger side while they're filming that. He's supposed to stab the driver's side because that's where the character's shitting. Probably shitting, honestly. She probably was shitting. She's going to try to give him money. See, it's kind of goofy. It's kind of funny. They know what they're doing. But anyways, I was saying, the continuity-wise, her character's sitting in the driver's seat. So he goes to throw the spear at the driver's seat. It hits the glass, and it changes the trajectory and veers towards the passenger seat. And she got missed by about an inch from getting stabbed. And she's the director's wife. Well, I mean, she had her American Express. They tell you you're not supposed to leave home without it. She had it with her. Just didn't do any good. Jason didn't have a card reader. He didn't want to pay the fees. They rape you with those fees. And he didn't have a phone line. He didn't want to get a phone line just so he could get a credit card reader and then have to pay fees. Cash only, bitch. Yeah, you generic cliched douchebag. Yeah, it's just a, kind of more of the same motley crew of generic teenage actors and actresses. The main girl is blonde again. Seems to be the case in everyone. I don't know if that's on purpose or if they're trying to send a message. Like, I don't know what the implication is that the final girl is always blonde, but there she is. So actually, I'm making it sound like it was their overt decision or first choice to completely go against what they did in the last movie entirely. That is not true. They had the actor that played Tommy in Part 5 signed on to be in this. They had the final girl from Part 5 signed on to be in this. They wanted to bring Reggie the Reckless back and have him be in this. They wanted to kill Reggie off, and him and his representation said, no, thank you. We survived a Jason movie. We're good. The actor that played Tommy decided he didn't want to act anymore, which is like, fucking A, dude. Could you decide that a year from now? And so because that Tommy was gone, they didn't want to bring the same final girl from the last movie, because that even poses more continuity questions. You can't have the final girl from Part 5 and then a different guy playing Tommy. It just is weird. So they just went with a new Tommy, ignored the other story altogether, call it good. The dude from Welcome Back, Kotter, is down there. He looked directly at the camera and said, some folks have a strange idea of entertainment. That's a wink and a nod to the audience. Us watching this fucking movie. That camp looks beautiful. I just got like a nostalgic feel looking at that camp. I haven't been camping since I was a kid. Having a nice fucking campfire, sitting out with a big stick, poking the coals and setting it on fire, and then putting it back in the dirt and putting it out, and then stabbing it in the coals and setting it on fire. You know, real simpleton shit. Just mindless. Just relax. Take a hatchet and go hit some shit during the day. Carve up a walking stick. Find a little offshoot of the creek and build a stupid custom dam. Just whatever. Fly by the seat of your pants. Another variation between Jason and Michael seems to be that, other than Alice, who decapitated his mom, and I guess gave him the most ample reason, Jason does not travel outside of his domain, really. He stays in his area. If you come to him, you're in jeopardy, but he is not going to you. Even if you survive, he's not chasing you down. He doesn't hold a grudge. He just doesn't want you in his area. And I say with the exception of Alice, because at the beginning of number 2, the first scene we get of adult Jason, he's in a suburb place, goes into her house and kills her, and then beats feet back to the woods real quick. But you have the Jenny in Part 2 who survives and we never see again. You have a few surviving final girls that we never see again. Jason doesn't care. He doesn't chase him down. And I guess that part of Michael might be what makes his lore more interesting, because he locks on to people, and he has omnifocus. It's only that one thing. He will kill auxiliary people that are in his way en route to them, but he is still, it's Laurie Strode or Jamie. He's pursuing one person, and he will go after them wherever they are. He will find them. He'll drive cars. He'll do whatever. So the audience is left to ponder why that is. It is defined for us that she's his sister in a lot of them. She got him. You thought wrong, you dumb son of a bitch.
Survival's the name of the game, and that flag is mine.
Never get shot. Never should let her play. It's a damn company exec game, and she's a damn company exec.
It's a company executive game. That's why the dude has all the pent-up rage later. They do a little bit of, like, pandering right here. This character's basically just here for the feminism audience to cheer, and I'm not disagreeing with the sentiment at all. I mean, I do disagree with what he's saying. I'm fucking this up, but so you could hear the resentment when he's talking about that girl because she beat him in a survival exercise, and he's talking about how she should get back in the kitchen and shit. Well, if she is supposed to be in the kitchen, what's your place in the world? Because she can out-survival you and out-hunt you, apparently. But they're executives that work together. She's probably better than him at whatever they do. And so he secretly to himself, when he goes home, drives home at night, is like, why couldn't she just stay in the fucking kitchen? I'm not that way at all. Let's compete and see who's better. Let's go about it that way. When competition is fair. I'm not talking about men boxing women. I'm not talking about having weightlifting competitions with men versus women. Shit where it's clear cut who's gonna win before you even start. Like having an 8-year-old fight an adult, like, you know, real stupid shit like that. Like, I don't agree with telling an adult they can't have steak because a baby can't chew it. But that doesn't change the fact that a baby can't chew it. That doesn't mean give everybody steak and let the baby not chew it. Just different strokes for different folks. Did you notice the foreshadowing that everybody that has the thing tied around their forehead that says dead gets killed in this scene? Oh, triple decapit. Oh. They actually had a great shot of that I saw in a documentary where all the heads flew off in unison, the knees crumpled, they fell to the ground, and they cut it all out. I've mentioned that before in other Friday the 13th movies and in other horror movies in general. They get over ambitious with what they're going to be allowed to show and still get an R rating. Comes back from the Motion Picture Association of America as an X or NC-17, whatever the fuck it is. And they have to cut stuff that they worked really hard on that would have been badass, and it was all for no reason. There's really got to be a better way to reconcile those two things and go into it with a better idea of what you're going to be able to get away with so that you don't waste so much. Because if you think about a low-budget movie, how much did they spend on that fucking effect and shooting it for it to not be used at all? It's just entirely off camera. You know how much it costs to shoot something off camera? Nothing. They could have spent nothing on that scene. Instead, they got all these fake heads, built this rig to pop them off in unison. They got dummy bodies. Like, that takes time and money. Motion Picture Association of America should have to refund them. I guess they're not the ones advising him. That's where it would get tricky, I guess. If the MPAA is advising along the way, then they're kind of putting their stamp of approval on what comes out at the end. But they do anyway. I don't. I have my issues with the MPAA. I don't disagree that things need ratings just so you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into ahead of time, especially if you have kids and you don't want them exposed to certain things, or you have certain sensibilities and you don't want them treaded upon. But they can... The issue is, if you get anything above an R, your visibility gets cut to almost nothing. So they have to get that R at the worst or their movie's not going to go into theaters and nobody's ever going to see it. It would be a total train wreck, a financial disaster. It goes from being a low-budget success at the box office to a low-budget, straight-to-home video, might break even. And I don't agree. I think there needs to be another rating or something. There needs to be another setting that you can go to. Something that's just above R, maybe, but not quite X. Like, because there is a group of people, I think a lot of us, who would want that decapitation scene to be left in there. And anybody who's going to be offended by that should know better than to watch Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason Lives. If they were still watching the movie this deep in, they can handle watching those 3 heads fall off the bodies and the bodies crumple to the ground. That's what we're here for. Like, who are you protecting? Who's going to randomly stumble upon this scene and grow up to be a mass murderer? Be like, I don't fucking know what they think they were doing with that.
Listen, you obviously don't know anything about Indians, okay? Probably none of you do. But here's a story. These are called Indian markers, okay?
Again,
You have a chief, right?
they're telling us that we can't have steak because a baby can't chew it, when this is supposed to be a movie that's not meant for babies. So stop editing it down to shit that you think is acceptable for a young person to, like, we're grown adults, okay? Some of us have fought in fucking wars, some of us have been arrested, some of us have fathered or mothered children, some of us have watched loved ones die. We want to see the best product possible. And if that means there's a few decapitated heads in the fucking thing, so be it. That's what we are capable of, making those decisions for ourselves.
The sign says you are now leaving Forest Green.
And nobody under the age of 17 is supposed to be getting into a rated R movie anyway. What kind of a Patty Faye fucking ass douche are you if you're over 17 and you can't handle that scene? Talking about survival earlier and Walking Dead and like the harsh reality of survival, those are the kind of people that are going to be fucked if a real harsh survival situation ever happens. People that can't even handle a movie scene where a few heads get decapitated. I have this interesting theory that the real hardcore fans of The Walking Dead is made up of primarily people who would be fucked in a real zombie apocalypse. It's just something I kind of observed based off watching like Facebook and seeing who is really into it. Like really into it. It tends to be people that look like they wouldn't have much of a chance if some shit went down. I'm just saying. It's an observation, and it's mine. I'm not saying it's the truth, fact, endorsed by anybody. Just seems to be the case.
Where'd Rogue go? Can't find the road.
This new Goofy Ralph type character. Cliche crazy drunk guy. Gravedigger. God damn it, why do they always do it? Goddamn kids. Fucking pranks on Halloween. Yeah, you know, that cliched, stereotypical teenager prank where they steal a 500-pound tombstone. I don't have any idea how much that tombstone weighed, but I know that it's not a regular occurrence for teenagers to steal big-ass tombstones. I've never heard of it once. He caught the ball. So the shitty Green Valiant comes pulling up. And he gets out. And he's naked. Butt naked. And he takes the bottle. And he chucks it into the tornado. And it never hits the ground. Sorry, that's from Twister. When he threw the bottle behind him and Jason caught it, that's what it reminded me of. Threw the bottle into the Twister and it never hit the ground. They haven't gone too ridiculous with Jason actually committing any supernatural acts. We know that he is because he got revived by the lightning, etc. But he's still doing pretty Jason-like shit. Camp Forest Green. Is this supposed to be Camp Crystal Lake? Or is this just an entirely different camp? I really... Before I dug in and started paying attention for these commentaries and reviews, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you the majority of these movies just take place at Camp Crystal Lake. I did not realize we bounce around the map so much. I also didn't realize that parts 2, 3, and 4 were all supposed to happen consecutively, chronologically. So by the time we ended number 4, we're like on Monday the 16th of 1 week. Like those movies all take space in the period of like 5 days. Storyline wise. Sorry, I got distracted by I forgot what I was talking about. I started watching her play with the cards and talk about Jason.
Come on, sissy. Okay, you be the queen of diamonds. What you do is you shuffle Jason up in these cards here, and you put them in piles. Because the piles represent cabinets.
This weird game card game where you're trying to find Jason. I'm not gonna lie, I've looked in the mirror and said Candyman, Candyman, Candyman many times in my life. And most of the time, it was just to freak other people out who were with me. Like, I don't know how the conversation would come up, but somebody would be like, don't do that. And I guess I'm that guy in the movie. I'm Stu. I'll be right back. Wait, Stu was the killer. Shit. Maybe that's why I can get away with it. Maybe I'm the killer. I think the first time I did it, I was probably like 8 years old. Looked in the mirror. Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. Or what's the other one? Bloody Mary. You say Bloody Mary 3 times. See, once you figure out that Santa Claus isn't real, and the Easter Bunny isn't real, and the Tooth Fairy is your parents, and the Candyman thing doesn't work, and that weed actually isn't that big of a deal. Forgot where I was going with that. Oh. That's when it's hard to buy into ghost stories. It's like, if all this shit I've been told my whole life ain't true by people I trust, how am I supposed to believe that something that most people have never seen in person and there's only stories about, no scientific proof of, how am I supposed to believe that exists? Is this supposed to be a sex scene? Why does she have her top on? I know the answer to that. So, these dipshits, I call them dipshits with the best intentions. I mean it lovingly. Sometimes I call my dog a dipshit. My wife and I call each other dipshits. It's like when you walk out the front door and realize you left your wallet in the house or your phone, and you go, good job, dipshit. Or Happy Gilmore, when he looks at his caddy and goes, where were you on that one, dipshit? Just kind of lovingly, jokingly, you know, lighthearted. Anyway, these dipshits got this deep into the production and realized they didn't have any nudity in the movie. So they approached her before they filmed this scene, and they're like, yo, could you do this topless? And her answer was, the contracts are already signed, so no. And thus, we don't get nudity here, which would have been the scene to have it in. That would have been the cliche Friday the 13th nude scene right there. Check that box. Didn't check it. A few times when I was a kid, we took our motorhome and went camping somewhere, like where they are right now. You know, just park somewhere out in the woods. And we had a generator for it. and it would sit outside and make that generator. Then it would, that fucking heinous, unrelenting, remarkably penetrating noise that fucking generators make. And movies like this had me terrified in situations like that. It was hard for me to sleep in a motorhome in the middle of the woods with that fucking generator going outside. I gotta be honest. I didn't have a great understanding of logistics and geography, though. Like, I was worried, like, that a homeless guy was just gonna stumble upon us and, like, start fucking with us. I didn't realize how far we were from, like, a town, and that homeless people don't really just live in the middle of the woods because there's nothing to eat or beg for there. So some of those fears weren't founded. You would have to have some mountain man character, or somebody who went out there with the goal of fucking with somebody, another camper. It's much less likely. It's just there's no people out there. You don't come across people. I used to get a little creeped out snowmobiling too. So, when you're snowmobiling, and it's just like a huge open meadow, and then you start weaving through these trees, and you're like, wait a minute, some shit could be hiding behind these trees. What? And you start thinking about blood sprayed all over the snow. Oddly enough, I never had any fears like that when I was snow skiing, which is odd. I'm not sure why. Maybe because there's so many people around all the time. You're never really alone, or you don't feel as vulnerable, because there's kind of a strength in numbers thing. It's hard to imagine a character like Jason just walking into the middle of a ski slope and hacking everybody to bits. That'd actually be a pretty good scene, though. Now that I'm thinking about it. I'm sorry, I'm not too invested in the plot of this. It's not really, it doesn't matter. You just watch it. It's not like Game of Thrones where you need to pay attention to the dialogue, or you might not know what's going on 3 episodes from now. Classic Game of Thrones, anyway. Vintage Game of Thrones, not that new shit that they were just peddled us. Talk about trifling. D&D be trifling with the reputation of Game of Thrones. This is great. I've never driven a house before. Sounds like something a high person would say. Somebody on acid. Dude, what's that? It's a motorhome, man. I've never driven a house before. Talk about saying stupid shit on acid. I had this fool. So I used to have a roommate back in the day because I live in the Portland area. Rent's expensive. My girl and I had roommates for years, up until like 6 years ago. Like the first 5-8 years of our relationship, somewhere in there, we had roommates. Help foot the bill. Rent's expensive. Figure it out. Multiple incomes, lighten the load. So anyway, I had this roommate who needed his buddy needed a ride, basically. I was supposed to go pick him up outside this check cashing place, which is like, what? And he goes, no, he works there, it's not shady. I'm like, okay. And he goes, he'll throw you a 20, and he wants to go to 7-Eleven, and he'll buy you, you know, whatever you want there, a soda and a snacks or whatever. I was like, all right, bet, cool. So I go there to pick this fool up, and he is fried out of his fucking mind. I'm assuming it was acid, but there had to be something else mixed in there because he was a little bit too squirrely for acid. He wasn't calm enough for it to be just straight acid. So this fucking guy gets in my backseat, and he's barely keeping it together. Like, he can't sit up straight. He's like a fucking slinky back there trying to stand up, or a dog in a station wagon, just all over the place. I'm starting to think maybe he's going to get sick in my car. I can't trust him. And my car at that time was brand new. This is back when I didn't understand debt, and I just thought you bought a brand new car, had it for a couple of years, and then you go trade it in a dealership, get another brand new car, and you're just married to monthly payments for your entire life. I don't do that anymore. All my shit's paid for. I'm not really a big fan of that. Anyway, I had a brand new car at the time, and I'm like, this guy is just jostling all around back there like a bag of hammers, and he's gonna fuck something up. So we stop at the 7-Eleven, and he asked me what I want. I am amazed that he was even able to get out of the car, make it into the 7-Eleven, and have a successful transaction. The fact that he was able to have an interaction with this cashier and leave the store having paid for his items with the items he intended to leave with and all of the belongings he walked in with, I was fucking befuddled. So anyway, he asked me what I want. And I was like, dude, just get me a bottle of Mountain Dew and we're straight. I don't need anything else. I got chips and shit at the house. I don't need candy. I'm good. Just get me a Mountain Dew. So he goes in, I think he bought like some fucking Swishers or Black and Mild, whatever, a Rockstar, and he gets in the back seat and he reaches forward with my Mountain Dew in his hand, and I look over my shoulder and it's a fucking 2-liter bottle. He bought me a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this, man? Seat belted into the front? Luckily, I had my girl with me, so she put it on the floorboard and held it between her feet so it didn't slosh all around and end up breaking open and spraying Mountain Dew all over my fucking floorboards. So I drive all the way back to my place with this Slinky in the back seat, this bag of hammers. And right at the time, I'm thinking this situation sucks a bag of dicks. And we pull in. And at the place that we lived, we had a carport. We had multiple parking spots, but they were one in front of the other. So depending on who had to leave first in the morning, you kind of had to jockey cars around to accommodate the schedule. So when we pull up, I look over at my girlfriend, my now wife, and I was like, do you need to move your car? Or no, I said, do you want to move your car? And the guy in the back seat opens up the door, looks at my wife's car, he goes, I don't even think this is my car, bro. And I was like, no shit, you dumb motherfucker. I just picked you up and brought you here. Oh my God. I was so happy to get him out of my car and smuggle him into my roommate's bedroom. I don't know what kind of goofy shit they did there. I don't know what kind of company that motherfucker could have possibly been, what kind of conversations you could have had with him, unless the goal of the meetup was for him to bring the acid to my roommate and they could trip balls together and talk about some stupid shit. But holy fuck was that. I got myself into too many awkward situations like that, being too nice. I'm sorry if you wanted me to talk more about this movie. I came over to my patio door to smoke a cigarette, and then I got on that tangent, and I haven't been paying a lot of attention. I know that Jason killed some people, and there was a motorhome. Drivable house. That's how I got on that. And that reminds me of another night. My friends and I were all mobbing around in my best friend's car. It was one of the few nights I worked graveyard on weekends, every weekend, starting the summer after junior year, clear up through my entire senior year. Every Friday and Saturday night I was working graveyard. I didn't go out and drink or party, do any of that shit. So when there was a long weekend and I had Sunday night off, it became an opportunity to go hang out with my friends that I didn't normally have. It was like an extra weekend day. My only, quote, weekend day. So we were all out hanging out. It was like the one time in 6 months I'd got the opportunity to do such. And we pull up to a stoplight, and there's this homeless guy stomping 1 foot on the ground like he's trying to put out a fire, or like there's red ants crawling up his leg. Like he is stomping like a motherfucker, and there's nothing there. There's not a beer can on the ground. There's not a piece of trash. There's not a banana peel. There's not an anthill. There ain't a fucking thing on the ground. Not a cigarette butt. And so we looked up and we're like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, there's bugs. And I'm like, oh shit, he's fucked up. And then I go, what are we on? And he goes, the rings of Saturn. Oh, was good times. Saw a bunch of rabbits running around that night. Used to get into good, wholesome fun. Back then, I smoked cigarettes, but there was no drinking, there was no weed, there was nothing. We were just psychopaths. We were just crazy. Just doing dumb shit, laughing our asses off all the time. Shooting fire extinguishers at each other. We were heavily influenced by Jackass and CKY. We didn't really ever take it to their level with the hurting ourselves stunts, but we would do some goofy shit, and that was kind of our wheelhouse. I gotta go take a piss. Y'all listen to the movie for a minute. I'm gonna check the runtime. I might double down on the cigarettes. I'm not particularly attached to sitting in front of the boob tube for this. Ooh, I did just watch her get ripped out of the window. Very reminiscent of number 4, but without the glass break and the slam onto the lower level. I guess that was a first floor window. Runtime, 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 runtime. Must check runtime. 48:53, total runtime 127. Oh, so it's like 40 minutes left, 35 minutes left. I'm gonna go ahead and have another cigarette. If you guys are listening to this and you're finding that it falls short of the mark of your expectations, I apologize. I don't really set any agenda or goals. I just talk about what I talk about. And there's movies where I have a lot more knowledge of the... What the fuck just fell? I just knocked something off my counter. Oh, it was a fly swatter. Anyway, I have a lot more knowledge of kind of the behind the scenes, inner workings, what went into the making. I don't have quite as much on this one. Just tangent rants about the MPAA and acid. And as I said before, I'm not so much into this, like the overall lore and through line at this point in the franchise has run its course for me. I'm just not as interested. Oh, damn. Is he staring right at her pussy? I like that they showed that shot from his perspective, so you get, because you wouldn't necessarily have that thought, like he's staring straight at her box when she shoves his head in her lap to hide him, but they just go ahead and acknowledge it, like this is what he's looking at this entire time. Probably smells nice, unless she farts in his face. That happens, folks. A lot of people like to hold this illusion that women don't fart. Believe you me, they do. They do, they do, they do. Your mother really committed like a crime or some kind of child abuse against you if she didn't fart in front of you when you were a kid, because she gave you an unrealistic expectation of the future. She really should have broke that ice. Like if, when my son grows up, if a girl farts in front of him, he's just going to be like, yep, that's what happens. That's what people do. Yep. As long as she doesn't want to make some big fucking spectacle out of it. Like, it's one thing for a person to be polite and just be like, yeah, it's a natural bodily function, we're fine. It's another thing if you want to like fucking create this big charade and laugh about it and joke and make it this big hilarious moment every single time. That I'm not on board with. Let's just leave it in the corner where it belongs. We know it's there, we don't acknowledge it. It is what it is. Boom boom. I am interested to see how they kill Jason in this. I don't remember. This still is much better than some of the later entries can get. I'll refer to Jason Takes Manhattan again. Not one of my favorites. I can't remember if it's Jason Goes to Hell. The one where he like transfers his spirit, but the one where the dude's eating the heart. Like that's gonna be a rough commentary. I should warn you guys, if you are devout fans of the franchise, once we get a little bit deeper in, it's probably going to turn from admiration and quote commentary to making fun. Just letting you know ahead of time. Once we get into maybe the next one, but definitely the one after that, Jason Takes Manhattan and Jason X and blah, 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 I'll probably be talking some shit about those ones. It's just the way she goes. Because the ones that I look at from a point of admiration, I talk about different than the ones that I think are really goofy or dumb. It's just a different mindset as I'm watching it, because I'm kind of sharing my thoughts with you guys. So if it's something I'm really intrigued by as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, they did this here, this is how they did that, oh, I wonder what's going on. If it's something I don't really give a shit about, I'm going, look at that dumb shit, what the fuck did they do here, why is that way? It's just the kind of the nature of the beast, the scorpion and the frog. See the opportunity or the opening, I just kind of go for it. And I don't claim to be an end-all be-all on any sort of form of media or franchise, even any specific movie. Just my opinion. That's what this all is. I'm not like Siskel and Ebert gives it 2 thumbs up, some kind of fucking standardized rating system you can abide by. This is just what I like and what I'm doing. I do have it's very hard for me once I start a franchise such as this or Child's Play or Halloween. I feel an obligation to complete it. That's the one thing though. So I will sit through some movies I don't necessarily like for the sake of completing the franchise. I am not going to do that with like Wrong Turn and all those fucking ones though. There's no way I'm watching Wrong Turn 9. Down the road, if I have more subscribers and I think that it's something that is worth doing, I might do like a live stream of these commentaries. I don't know if anybody who listens to the comment and tell me, would you like a video element to these commentaries, or do you like what I do where it's just screenshots of the movie and me talking? Do you think anything would be added by the video element? The only thing I'm worried about is I'm more comfortable when there's no video element. I like right now I'm standing at my patio door holding my mic up to my face looking at the TV. If I was on video, it would be a lot harder to coordinate all this stuff. I'm not such a big fan of smoking weed on camera and broadcasting it over the internet, so I would just my comfort level overall would be deteriorated by that. So I don't know if it's worth it. Also, let me know, what do you think of I kind of do the commentary and the review for each movie in tandem, and it almost seems like maybe it's a waste because I'm covering the same film 2 times in such a short period. Maybe I should do the commentary and then like 6 months later do the review. I'm not exactly sure if I'm navigating that right. So let me know if you have an opinion on that as well. But someday it would be dope if we all sat down with our cups of coffee, took a couple of hits, and then watched our show together. But as it sits with it being a podcast, you can kind of start that ritual whenever you want. Whatever chunk of time you have where you can sit down and relax. You can start the podcast, make yourself a cup of coffee, load yourself a bowl, and we all go through this experience together. Come on and take a free ride. That's what she said. I do feel a little bit guilty, like I haven't quite given this movie its justice. It's just due, but I don't know. Not to the extent that I would record it again. I'll say that, but I probably could have done a little better, I'll be honest. At least it hasn't been stammering and umming. I've actually had something to say. That's a plus. Just wasn't so guided towards the movie. I don't have as much to wrap my arms around. In the original, it's of course the OG. It sets up the rest of the franchise. Even though it really doesn't, because there's no Jason. It kind of is the black sheep of the franchise, even though it's the originator and one of the best overall films and productions. So you kind of wrap your arms around that. Betsy Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees is fucking outstanding. So you can wrap your arms around that. The second one, it's the emergence of Jason. He's Baghead. There's interest there. The third one, he gets his mask. It's in 3D. You have slightly more interesting characters and kills. Then 4, that I think is the best one. You have the great Tommy Jarvis character played by Corey Feldman. The kids are the best written and acted in the entire franchise. It's a good Jason. 5, you have kind of the copycat thing. You're trying to hash through the details as you're watching it and figure out, does this make sense? Is this okay? Am I upset about this? This one, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's a movie. It is a movie. I would definitely choose to watch this over many other things, though. I'm not trying to say it's bad. It's just not outstanding or extraordinary in any particular way, in my opinion. Nothing's jumping out at me. Damn, she's kind of snarky, huh? That's her character, though. That's what the director wanted. He wanted kind of that, why don't you mind your business, see? Kind of attitude. From her. Frummer. The little Frummer boy. Rum-pa-pum-pum. I have no weed in my bowl. Rum-pa-pum-pum. We have 27 minutes left in this film. Rum-pa-pum-pum. There are ground nugs in my grinder. Rum-pa-pum-pum. 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 It's a little pinch. And twist.
Don't clown around.
I'm not the one with the funny red.
Pack it in around the edges. Make sure there's no spillage.
Maggie.
Not too tight though. Gotta get some air circulation through there.
She says. Wherever the red dot goes.
You're holding a cop at gunpoint. This is gonna end well for you. That laser sight on top is fucking ridiculous. Why is it so big? Looks like you mounted a mag light on top of a pistol. It's 2 or 3 times bigger around in circumference than the barrel of the gun. This is ridiculous. This is vintage high-waisted Levi's. She had a nice ass. That's where the red phone leads. They had a red phone. Connects directly to the White House. What is this Back to the Future city? See? I've turned. I've started making fun. I'm sorry. She have a hole in her pants? Looked like she had a hole in her pants on the back of the left leg. I discovered a hole in one of my favorite t-shirts today. I was not pleased. It's okay though. It's fucking way she goes, right, Rick? Right, Rick? I have too many t-shirts as it is. It's a natural culling of the herd. This one wasn't able to sustain the test of time. You guys ever have a shirt, like, maybe it wasn't your favorite shirt, but it was a shirt you were fairly fond of, you wore often, and one day you just realize that you haven't seen it in like a year, and you have no fucking idea where it went, and you're pretty sure you didn't get rid of it, but it's just nowhere to be found, and you never get an explanation. Like, I will go to my grave not knowing where a shirt that I used to like to wear in high school went. I'll still remember it was sleeveless, it was red, it had black embroidery on the chest that said New York and some kind of generic number. It was like a basketball style jersey. I used to like to wear it to work out, wear it to PE, all of the above. And then one day I was like, where's that fucking shirt? And I have no clue where it went. I have no idea what happened to that shirt. So I was just curious if that ever happens. I know socks is kind of the one that everybody talks about, but they're playing on your emotions here. They want you to think he's going to kill this kid. Pretty sure he doesn't. Okay, if he's kind of Frankenstein zombie-like, that was a bit too much of a human reaction. You would think he would be more focused on whatever task than to get distracted by things like that, and then have a real quick reaction to the cops being there and beat feet. But here I am complaining about him being too human when I was also complaining about him being a zombie. It's just, if you're gonna make him a zombie, make him a zombie. If he's human, make him human. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna make him a zombie, I want zombie qualities out of him. I want him to act like a zombie. That's creepy as fuck. There's these people that live in floating houses on the river in Portland. Like, literally, they're like little tiny houses. They're attached to a dock and they float on the river. And one of them gets a New York Times. So I would have to park my car up in the parking lot and jog down this long-ass ramp that goes a good 40 or 50 feet away from the shore and over the water, and deliver their paper, and then jog my ass back up. It was just a little eerie and creepy, and it made me feel vulnerable being around the water. Plus, I was always worried somebody was going to steal my car while I was gone. Not as creepy as the person I saw walking down the middle of the road wearing a rabbit mask and carrying a skateboard over their shoulder. That was like a big like mascot style rabbit mask, and they were walking on the yellow lines in the middle of the road at 2 in the morning. And that was a neighborhood where I had to porch the papers. I was so glad when I looked down at my sheet and saw that I didn't have to do anything for a couple blocks. I wanted to get the fuck away from them. Did not have an inviting appearance at all. Like she says in this movie, I've seen too many movies about dudes wearing masks to be comfortable with this situation. I don't think I allowed myself to become immersed in this movie enough. Like, I have the feeling that scene should have been building a more ample sense of suspense in me than it was, and I think that that's my fault. It seemed like they were doing a good job there. Okay, now that's full-on zombie shit. But there, see, he's supposed to be more powerful. In part 3, he squeezes Rick's head and pops his eye out of his head. He should have full-on crushed that motherfucker right there. Michael Myers can do that. And as I've said before, I don't like the idea of a Jason versus Michael movie. I don't think they're on level ground. I don't think they're equal to one another, and I don't think that there's a compatibility there as far as fight scenes and interactions. If you want to make it feel natural and authentic to what both of those characters are, I don't feel like you can do it well and have them interact. I know there's a fan film that's out there that's done really well. It's not bad. I mean, it even got me in my feelings a bit. I was like, why are you doing my Michael dirty like this? Why is Michael losing? But the fight scenes, they had Michael doing a lot of not Michael things. They had him moving very quickly, doing like karate John Woo type shit. And Michael never does anything like that in any of the movies. He stalks, he pops out, quick kills. There's not just head up, hand-to-hand combat style shit in his arsenal in that way. And I've thought that it made him, like, it's much easier in that scenario to have Jason seem like Jason than to have Michael seem like Michael, if that makes any sense. But if they ever made one, for sure I would watch it. For sure I'd probably like it. I just wouldn't, it wouldn't be my choice. But my stipulation is that we have to go back to human Jason. We need Jason from part 2 that is just a guy. Not this guy that is superhuman, superpower, can't be killed, Frankenstein. That's not even close to level ground. That's not even close to a fair fight. Kind of like the old WCW versus WWF days. Which side are you on, Jason or Michael? I like the Jason in the remake too, Friday the 13th from 2009, which is essentially a remake of Friday the 13th Part 2 because it's Jason. God damn, I like her jeans. I mean, I like the way they fit her body. It's not like I want to wear them. I want to crumple them up and put them on my floor. Nice little heart-shaped ass. I can't believe there's no nudity in this. I like that scene though. Blood all over it's like the Dexter room or something. The room he walks into that's all covered in blood that makes him lightheaded. Actually has him shook. I can't get over how good those jeans look on her. I forgot, I haven't acknowledged they actually have the kids at the camp this time. This is the first one. Kind of raises the stakes a bit. Most of the time they're gearing up for the season. They're preparing the camp. But this time the campers are there. The remake Friday the 13th Jason, though, I would have preferred him be a little bit more human. He was already, like, he had weird fucked up skin, and he had, like, one strand of really long hair. Like, why would Jason want that? Why wouldn't he just cut it off? You know when he jumps through the window, and he grabs Jenny and pulls her out? Which they never really specify if that was a dream sequence, or if that actually happened, how she got free. None of the above. And he just kind of looks like a fucked up mountain man with a beard and long hair. Let's just go with that. Let's just go with that. And the remake, the biggest sin they made was that they kept the mom and the drowning backstory. And they shot themselves in the foot. That didn't need to be there. It muddies the water and clouds up the timeline before you even get off the ground. Just make the movie and don't explain why he's there or what's happening. Just do it that way. I also thought it was weird that in the remake, the initial group of kids that are out camping looking for the pot farm are more relatable and more charismatic than the later group, which you'd think it would be flipped. You think we would care more about the later group since they're kind of carrying the film for most of the way. So the blonde girl is the cop's daughter. I haven't acknowledged that either. That's a very Halloween-esque move. Sheriff Brackett. Or, what are all the various cops? What's Annie's dad's name? He's not Sheriff Brackett, is he? Oh, I do know how that was filmed. They dug a big hole and he's standing in it, and then they have the fake legs coming out behind him, and they just had him lean back over him. Oh, this is how he does it. That's right. And then the next movie, the girl with telekinesis, the telepathic powers, right, brings him back. So he isn't ever actually killed in this. He just gets held underwater in perpetuity until somebody frees him. That's a hell of a proposition, to go out on that boat with that and Jason and trust that you're not going to be the one that ends up wrangled in it and stuck at the bottom. It's a 50-50 proposition at best. Like, the odds, damn, he busted through that door. You even saw him have to catch his footing afterwards. He really put some power into that. But, I mean, I think that the odds are in Jason's favor that you're going to be the one that ends up with the chain wrapped around you. Goddamn, he's just breaking through shit. We're done with this set. You can bust it up. Oh, did I hear a crack? See, Jason doesn't do this. Jason doesn't care about specific people. He's even walking like Michael there. This is a Michael move. Come on, maggot head. He's walking with purpose. Is this a scene from The Mighty? Where's Kieran Culkin? He called him a chicken shit. Ooh, and a pussy. How well does Jason understand words? Did he basically raise himself? Who's he talk to? If you don't exercise that, you kind of lose it. I guess you'd understand him when you hear him, but the speaking ability, he never learned it. There's air bubbles. He breathes. Does he need to? He needs to breathe. He doesn't need to breathe. This would be a bit... This is what I mean. Like, the odds that you're going to get that chain wrapped around him and you don't end up fucked in the mix somehow. It's not the best plan. Like, if I were a betting man, and I didn't know the result. You bet on Rocky in Rocky 3? Or no, you bet on Rocky 3 and you bet against Rocky? I fucked that up. But if I were a betting man, I'd bet on Jason. Okay, does that work? They do this in Free Willy. It must work, because how else would they light the water on fire? I've always been curious, but like, how do you try that? Do you just get a bucket and put some, like, it seems like a weird thing to... See, here you go. This is the fight for your life right here. This is the wrestling match to determine only one can survive. Only one to rule them all. Wrap around his neck. Nah, that's easy to slip out of. You need over-under. See? This is an ill-conceived plan, Tommy. How did you think you were going to manage to win this? I know he does, but it seems like the odds are really stacked in his favor. And what if Jason just grabs a hold of you and doesn't let go? Oh, he's got it around the neck. He got it around the neck. Oh, and Jason breaks the boat and causes the rock to sink himself. He does get it around the neck. I thought he got it under one of the armpits and around the neck. Or like the way a beauty pageant ribbon would sit. Diagonally across the chest. Just scarred about the face and breast, chest, neck, and head. Is he gonna pull his mask off? How does Tommy get out of here? Does he get out of here? I guess not. See? I saw that being an issue. I did not think he was gonna survive that. Look at her little tummy showing. She's so hot. I wonder if she had better underwear than the girls in the other ones. Bad underwear choices in the previous. Damn. She looked like she accidentally fell the way that she flew off there. Is she gonna revive him? Some cliche bullshit. Just let him die. That's subverting the audience's expectations. It'd actually be kind of cool if she died too. If the resolution was that nobody survived, but he was stuck at the bottom of the lake, I kind of like that. And it leaves it wide open, because now somebody just has to accidentally untangle him, and you're off to the races again. What are we doing with this outboard motor here? Oh, fuck. What is she? She's cutting his head off, or digging into his... Ugh. Ugh. Look like soggy fruity pebbles coming out of there. Was that supposed to be his head? Hi, Mary Jane. Okay, you're making a shitload of noise. It's my dog. Her tail was hitting the couch and the coffee table. Does he live? I see a much better ending here, and it was very obvious. We don't ever bring back final girls. And the Tommy character's pretty much run its course, especially after this movie, this portrayal. He wasn't nearly as interesting as what we started with that Corey Feldman role. Yeah, see... I would have liked... Is that morbid? Is that weird? But I think it's a better ending if Jason kills at least him. And I think it's a great ending if he kills them both. We don't need these characters. That's not important to the franchise to still have them. The survivors have never been important or crucial to the story for multiple movies. So you don't need to have any. Just have the kids survive. The next movie is one of these kids grow up and are traumatized, or they have a reunion, something like that. I think it would have been dope if Jason drowned both of them, but then he can't get himself free. He's just stuck down there. Because what did she do to him with the motor? Like, he's all cut to fucking shit. How's his head even attached still? He's alive. What is this weird kind of disco synth goth? Whitney Rideback. Feed me more. So there you have it. I hope that I did at least a satisfactory job. The N in Sherman is cut off. That's weird. The name's too long to fit on the credits. Her name. Yeah, I hope I did a satisfactory job to satisfy at least some of you. It's probably not what hardcore fans would have hoped for. I feel a little bit guilty for that, but it is what it is. I feel more guilty about the remake of Halloween 2018 being my first ever commentary, because I just didn't have my footing. I wasn't comfortable with the process, and I kind of regret doing the Halloween franchise initially overall, just because it would have been nice to drop those once I had more of a subscriber base or a following, just to give them... It sounds like weird to say, but I really feel like I had a lot to say during those, or at least most of them, and I thought that they were good. I just was uncomfortable and choppy at times, kind of got, I had anxiety. I'd never recorded anything like that before. So, if I had held off doing the Halloween franchise until I got more used to the process, I probably could have done an even better job, and they would have gotten more exposure. But that is what it is. If you've listened to this point and you haven't checked out my other commentaries, I'm doing the whole Friday franchise in chronological order. So this is number 6, so I've already done 1 through 5, as well as the remake from 2009. I did all the Child's Plays. You might want to avoid those if you're a fan of the Child's Play movies, because I'm not so much, so I wasn't kind for most of those, and a lot of them, it was arduous. I did all the Halloweens, I did all the Screams, I did the I Know What You Did Last Summers. There's a lot of content on there, so if movie commentaries are your thing, there's playlists on my actual channel page. I've split it up into the separate franchises to make it more digestible and easier to navigate. You can also find all the audio versions of the commentaries on my SoundCloud, or you can get the RSS and put it on iTunes or Zune, whatever your downloader is, or you can just Google Avarice Podcast and find me. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. Until the next time, this is Devin signing out and saying be easy.